Hi, this is Ofori. We're here with Nana Spio-Garbrah.
Nana Spio-Garbrah is the founder and creative director of Blueprint Africa. She is an emerging interior stylist dedicated to developing a community around trend-setting African-inspired decor. A seasoned art director with an eye for symmetry, printed patterns, and riveting contrasting color, Ms. Spio-Garbrah has worked on a number of visual campaigns for companies targeting the African continent, including London-based women's wear line Nubian Skin. She is also the assistant set designer for the second season of the hit TV show An African City, a show that has over 2 million views worldwide and features in Vogue, NPR, and many other popular outlets. Having begun her career in management consulting with IBM and thereafter Deloitte, Nana is a creative problem solver, strong budget planner, and enthusiastic project manager, very adept at seeing client projects through to fruition. Her 5 years in strategic advisory work for C-suite clients makes her a natural fit for any high-profile, tight turnaround project. Nana also spent 5 years working in the finance sector for a multilateral development bank. She launched Blueprint Africa during this period to leverage her knowledge and friendships with artisans of the continent, resulting from her travels to over 20 African countries including Senegal, Kenya, Malawi, Nigeria, Togo, Ethiopia, Cape Verde, South Africa, Tanzania, and Cameroon. Her expertise in the areas of African handicraft and furniture design has made her a much sought-after collaborator on both residential and corporate projects. Nana holds a MSc in Finance and Development from the University of London School of Oriental and African Studies and a BSc in International Economics from Georgetown University of Foreign Service.
Welcome to the African Dream, Nana Spio-Garbrah. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing awesome. It's such a privilege to have you join us here on the African Dream Show, and we appreciate you making time for us.
Absolutely. It's a long time coming. So
I know, right?
I owe it to you guys.
Almost 2 years in the making, but we're finally here today.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about Blueprint Africa.
So Blueprint Africa is an interior design consultancy. I'm an interior stylist. I should say that it was born from a blog
Right.
that I ran for a number of years prior to that, which showcased African brands, African aesthetics in the home. And from that blog, I got a lot of interest, orders, requests from people for me to either style their homes or to source for retailers. A number of things which I did on and off as opportunities came. And
Right.
after a while, I just said, let me just formalize this into an actual business.
Cool. Is that blog still in existence?
Yes, so it's now a website,
Nice.
www.blueprintafrica.com. So we have articles and we feature various African brands, homeware brands, architects, interior designers on the continent.
Talk a little bit about the sourcing aspect of your company, Blueprint Africa, the sourcing and curation aspect.
So sourcing is a line of business that we do for retailers. So we basically serve as middlemen for retailers that might be in Australia or Europe or the US and artisans or brands that are on the continent. Usually what happens is those buyers
Right.
have to travel themselves. They don't really know how to navigate the system, or don't get, the pricing that they would want. And then the logistics are a total nightmare, dealing with ports and trying to get containers back to them can be costly and time consuming.
Right.
So a lot of times they hire me to play that role. And then curation is basically selecting brands or selecting products that align with the store's clientele.
Right.
Or I do a lot of curation for exhibitions, for example, so selecting brands and onboarding them to participate in shows, depending on the theme or, whatever the event producers have in mind in terms of a common thread that should be present throughout the selection.
Got you. Now, are there other aspects of Blueprint Africa that people should know about? Are there things that you do that is a little bit out of line?
I do a lot of writing.
Okay.
So I've written for Globe and Mail in Canada, which is I believe, the largest newspaper in Canada. So I like to write. So I write for a number of digital outlets and then also print. I also do art direction. So I've actually done some product photography for brands like Nubian Skin that was launched by a Nigerian, and that doesn't have a direct link to the home, but I did style it in a series of flat lays to show that, clothing is part of our everyday lives,
right.
And we obviously get dressed in the house, so the home was like a background character. But yes, so art direction and writing are two things that I do, but I still try to have the link back to the home somehow.
Now, as an interior stylist who is well-traveled, I must say, what are some of the things that you have seen that have been able to get roped into your work as an interior stylist, whether you're doing interior styling for a client or for a project or whatever it is that you're working on?
Yeah, so I've been really blessed to exhaust my passport. I've been one of those people that actually has to get a new one because the stamp page is finished.
Right.
So that's been a really huge blessing. And I've done a lot of travel inside of Africa, which I just think more people should do, right? We're always going to Paris or Rome or the US, but we don't know Seychelles or Cameroon or Burundi or countries on the continent. And I think that's where I've really, in my business, I've really tried to incorporate that. So if I have a client that's in Kenya, I want to bring things from West Africa to their home. And if I have a client that's in Nigeria, I want to bring Tunisian things or North African things into the home. So I think that cross-continental awareness building, that we actually have everything here, is really important to me. So I definitely try to incorporate that into what I do.
Let's talk a little bit more about your styling activities. You have had the opportunity to do the set designing or styling for an African city.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about what an African city is, and then how you got the gig to, style their set.
So an African City is a ridiculously popular web series that was launched, I think, almost 4 years ago now. It has 2 seasons. So I was recruited to work on the set design for season 2 as an assistant set designer. And I got that opportunity. It was actually one of my first projects. And I got that opportunity because the creator and director and producer of the show, Nicola Matefio, is a high school friend.
Oh, nice.
And she is a person that's really into supporting, her friend circle, but also women entrepreneurs. And she's just a person that wants to push other people's dreams. So if she sees opportunities for alignment, she definitely
taps into it.
Yeah, taps into it. So I'm eternally grateful to her and to that opportunity, because it was really a launch pad for everything that's come after. So that was a great experience. Yes, I was set designing with the CEO of Dar Living. So we worked together to create the sets. So, and the process is such that, you have a mood board, like you have the whole concept on paper, you have a lot of conversations. Who are these characters? What does Mami Aje's character, what would her home feel like? What does Sade's home feel like? Their personalities are different. How do you bring that out? And how do you reinforce who the characters are through their home? So there's a lot of before, and then the actual production, putting it all together. So I don't know. I can't really say that there's going to be a signature that you can say is Blueprint Africa, but it's just very modern and tastefully African. So we didn't want to do all this tribal, safari. If there's even, I always try to use an S because there's no singular African aesthetic. So I just think that the signature is that it's African without being, overtly so or kind of stereotypically so.
You've had the opportunity to travel extensively, especially across the continent of Africa. And when you enter a friend's house or a relative's house, being the interior stylist that you are, the things that you've seen across your travels, does it give you a picture of now Africa is sort of like paying more attention to how people personally design their home interior? Is there like more importance being placed onto how my home looks like, not just to me, but to the outsider who walks into my house? Or is it, I'm asking this because gone are the days, for instance, me personally, when I was growing up, you throw things everywhere in the house and you're like, it's a home, you could go in there, get your sleep, you have a roof over your head, forget about what people think about how it looks. Sort of kind of question that I'm trying to ask.
Yeah. I think, and again, I can't speak for the whole continent because, we're not a monolith, so everywhere is different and there's all these nuances. But I think from what I've seen, we're getting there. We're not quite there. And to be fair, interior design services are luxury services, right? There's things that people with a certain income will pay for. Otherwise, it's just not traditionally been an area that, the average person would delve into.
Right.
But now, because there's a rising middle class and people are additionally stretched for time, and because information around where to shop and where to get furniture on this continent in terms of like just market intelligence is so weak. We have very few furniture retailers that are well known or brand names versus say the US, where there's Pottery Barn and there's West Elm and there's IKEA and there's this and that. Like, we don't have those things. So because of the lack of information, the lack of time, increasingly, and the rising incomes, it's becoming more and more a service that people are demanding. And then obviously with the internet, and particularly social media, it's become very cool, right? Because you go on Pinterest and you can see all these images about how your home could look, and then you're like, oh wow, why does my home not look like this? I need this, in my life. So it's been on the rise. But what I can say is that for example, I'll give you an example. We love beige. Okay. So like, one of my struggles when I get a client is, how can we have a house that's not beige?
De-beige the client.
De-beige everything. Breaking beige. Like, I want to paint your wall blue. I want to put wallpaper up. I want to do like things that are not brown and beige and this color palette that we associate with Africa, right? So that's always a challenge. So it's not even so much that people aren't demanding the services, but they still want a look that
they're familiar with.
Which I try to break. But obviously the client is a client, so you have to listen to them. But slowly breaking them away. So that's one point. And then maybe a second point that I'll mention is that decor and design takes a second tier place versus fashion. Okay, so fashion is like huge. Everybody is now into wearing wax prints or wearing actual African designers. So the Maki-O's, Osei Duro, Studio 189. People want to wear those brands. That hasn't translated as quickly into the home. We still like our Italian furniture and our imported Turkish rugs or whatever. So I think it'll come. Because the interior design industry as a whole tends to follow fashion trends. So it is coming, but it's a slower process.
Right. If I were an African and I had money, which I pray I do get, and I had money and I could afford that kind of luxury brand, luxury style, uppity kind of investment, where in Africa would you point me to look at?
Because I don't want to say, or I don't want to convey that interior styling or interior design is a luxury in itself. I think that on this continent, paying for services in general is something that is, people don't appreciate the service that you're providing. And this I see across creative industries. People don't understand why video editing is a certain price, or people don't understand why creating a garment by hand is a specific price, because of the service element. If I give somebody a $10,000 table, somebody will buy that. But if I say, okay, me finding that $10,000 table that you love is going to cost X, they get a bit confused. So it's actually the service side of it that I would say is something that's more perhaps in the middle class or upper middle class space, just because paying for something that a person perceives they can do themselves comes when you have, let's say, more disposable income, or you just don't have time and things like that. So I think that generally the product, no matter the price, that's fine. But the paying for the person to find it, to come and look at your property and say, okay, you need this size of a bed, this furniture should move here, blah, blah, blah. That consulting aspect is what I would say is seen as a bit of a luxury. So coming back to your original question, where can somebody with some cash go to get nice, modern African pieces? So that's also a tricky question, but I do think that West Africa is really doing well. There's a number of luxury African designers that are well known. Ousmane Baye, Sheikh Diallo. So Ousmane Baye is in Senegal, and they have a ton of fantastic artisans and people working in the design space that make really unique, iconic, actually, furniture. So Ousmane Baye is one, Sheikh Diallo is another. He's in Mali. In terms of textiles or upholstery, there's Chrissa Amwa, there's Joanna Brumble, there's Aissa Dion. And it doesn't have to be luxury, right? It can just be, I mean, I also feel like we operate on two extremes. So there's either the trinkets and the handicrafts market, or then there's like the super expensive market. And there's definitely a lot of brands that are in that middle, ground space that are less known. And they tend to be the focus of what I do, because that's what the everyday person is going to be looking for, that quality, but not, something that's going to take them 3 months' salary to pay off.
African Culture and Design Festival last year in 2017 in Nigeria. What exactly were you doing there?
So there was assistant curator for the design pavilion. The event had 4 pavilions: video, installation, art, and traditional art, and the design pavilion. So I was assisting the event producer, Titi Ogufure, to identify and onboard designers to participate, and then I was in charge of exhibition display and a number of other things, basically to make the design pavilion a success.
Cool. What did that opportunity tell you about the future of Africa's interior design? What future did it paint to you? Because that was a huge opportunity to bring home right under your nose all these big names and up and coming names in the industry under one roof, and you had the opportunity to see all and experience, if not all, some of them. What future does that make you want to paint as far as the interior design and decor, story of Africa is concerned?
Well, I think that I want it to be a continental story, which is a bit difficult, and a lot of people argue, with me on this, that it should first be localized. Like, we need to have our Benin furniture industry before we have our West Africa furniture industry, before we have our Africa furniture industry. There's definitely merit to that argument, but I think in the context of ACDF, it was great to have so many different countries represented, and especially Francophone countries, because there's not, to have Francophone countries in Francophone designers in Nigeria, many of them there for the first time ever, even though their products are sold there,
right.
In Alara and the rest, was, for me, really encouraging and enriching, because I just couldn't understand how they could have not been to Nigeria before, as probably one of the biggest markets that could exist for them outside of foreign markets, at least the biggest market on the continent. So I think that there is a need for there to be more of a community. I think that we're lovers of African design and the artists themselves. They communicate, but it's sometimes competitive. It's sometimes they don't leverage amongst themselves to create more opportunities for themselves. They're each trying to do their own individual thing, and I think that the ACDF and any event that can unite them into a community is positive, especially when it's multiple countries and not just all Francophone countries or one country. I think that's important. So those that have already been established, like one of the most endearing moments for me was to see the similarities between Studio Lani, which is a design house that's based between Nigeria and New York. She's had a lot of success, and at the event I noticed similarities between her work and Sheikh Jallo's work, which Sheikh Jallo is like the godfather of African design. He's fantastic, and he's been in this industry, leading the industry for many, many years. So it was just, and they met, and, she was very happy to just, be in his presence and say, I've been inspired by you,
right.
All these years. And it was just evident in her work, probably subconsciously. But I think those kind of interactions between older generation, new generation, different countries, that's what's going to keep the whole system going. So for me, that was a big takeaway. Before
we leave you, tell us what sort of people in the industry is Blueprint Africa looking to connect with and probably just network with, and if you have any tips for amateurs like me watching and listening to you, as far as interior design and decor is concerned, we'd appreciate if you gladly share that.
Tips: come to my website, www.blueprintafrica.com, when you are looking to source things, because like I said, we feature and showcase a lot of designers that are on the continent that are not necessarily well known, or that you may not know, that can just bring that one, talking piece or uniqueness to your home. And then obviously you're supporting the African economy and the local community. So that's tip number one. Tip number two is don't be afraid to hire somebody to assist, give you a different perspective, give you their expertise on your home, because we don't value our spaces enough. We feel like, oh, we get up, it's just a place to sleep. And that's not true. I mean, your home is your sanctuary. Your home, I put 10 times more effort into my home than I do on my physical appearance. I'm happy to go out in my pajamas, but my home has to be clean. It has to be zen, tidy. I have OCD when it comes to my house, and it's just because that is what centers you. That you're in, especially me, my environment directly impacts my mood, and I think it's a symbol of self-care, how much you invest in something that is just for you. Nobody else sees your house necessarily. Nobody else is coming into your bedroom. So if you don't put care into the space that's dedicated exclusively for you, what are you really saying about, how much you value yourself? So I feel that your home is a symbol of self-care. So put effort into it, and don't be afraid to hire somebody to help you sort out your ideas, bounce thoughts off of. It's not going to break the bank, and you can be really happy with the results. And my last tip is, please, for the love of God, have long curtains. Curtains should touch the floor, please.
Thank you for joining us on the African Dream, Nana Spio-Garbrah. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and we look forward to hearing more from you, and we wish you all the best in your endeavors as you go out there to live the African dream.